This is the Silver and Black Today podcast, your source for Raiders news and information. Now, here's your hosts, swaggering boisterously.
Indeed, we are. Welcome to the Cigarbox Las Vegas. This is the Silver and Black Today podcast. I am Scott Branson, founder, publisher of silverandblacktoday.com. You can also hear us on our radio show, Silver and Black Today, on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM in Las Vegas every Sunday from 8 to 10. That's year-round, so you can always get your Raiders fix. And again, we're coming to you live from the Cigar Box in Las Vegas, switching it up, doing the podcast here, but also doing live on video. So you can catch us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it may be. And joining me today is our Silver and Black Today .com draft analyst, and that is Kelly Kriner. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
Good. You ready to talk draft?
I'm always ready to talk draft.
All right. Well, let's jump in. First, the first thing I wanted to do, Kelly, was actually talk a little bit. So Monday we were out at the groundbreaking for the Raiders' new headquarters and practice facility, and so that was great. Derek Carr was there, so we had some current players there, which is unusual because as the whole Oakland Las Vegas thing has happened, people haven't brought current players of that stature here. Tahir Whitehead was also here, as was Justin Ellis. So, but that's good. But I think this is just one of those other milestones that, hey, they're coming. There's some people who still don't want to accept the fact that they're moving to Las Vegas, but this was yet another step. And I think it starts to get people, people are excited about the Raiders in Las Vegas, but they're not enamored yet because it's still been so far away. But now you feel in town, starting to feel a little more buzz, you think?
You are seeing it a little bit more. And, I work in a bar on the Strip, and we get a lot of, people from California. A lot of people are asking about what I think about the Raiders coming up. You're really starting to see it ratchet up. I think it's just finally settling in for everybody that this isn't just a ploy to get him to stay in Oakland, that this is, it's a done deal, and people are finally coming to grips with that fact.
Yeah, no, it's definitely occurring. It's happening. It's going. It was great to see everybody out there and to see across the street our good friend Ariel Zaninga, who's a chef here in town, had a tailgate. And they were making filet mignon tacos and fajita. I mean, they were just going crazy. And, in fact, president of the Raiders, Mark Badane, actually stopped by with Dan Ventrell, who's the lawyer, legal counsel for the Raiders, who does a lot of the contract work and cap work and all that stuff. So it was good to see them. I think it shows that it's starting to grow, right? So, and after the season they had, Kelly, Raider Nation doesn't give up. I mean, some people do, but most do not, and so they were hardcore.
They were tailgating at a groundbreaking. That's all you need to know. I mean, that's the level of fandom that some Raiders fans have.
Yes.
They're sticking a shovel into dirt, and they are tailgating this.
Yeah, and Kelly, I mean, do you think, with Raider Nation and all that comes along with it, it's often misunderstood and misrepresented because of what people consider to be a certain element, right, to this criminal element type of thing. It goes back to the late 80s, of course, with the advent of gangster rap and of NWA and those guys, Snoop and but clearly it goes far beyond that. It really is an amazing loyal. I mean, you're talking about one playoff appearance in the last 16 years, and they're still hardcore.
Man, 16, yeah, that's just saying that. It's like, wow.
Well, and Kelly, with your knowledge and experience and tracking the draft, that's what we wanted to focus on more today and talk a little bit. Of course it's early, but for football fanatics and for Raider Nation, who's really excited about the future for the team, despite what happened this year and the hard choices that were made, like Khalil Mack and others, it really is a time to be excited because you start to move now towards, I think, the Combine's March 3rd. So we're a month and a half away from the Combine, and then the draft the month after that. When you start to look at what's going on with the draft, the first thing we got to talk about, I think, Kelly, is the fact that we now know who's filed early to come out of college. Some of those guys are going to have an impact on that first round and on the Raiders pick, right? So Kyler Murray's coming out. Who is it out of the guys who did file for early entry into the NFL draft? who's the biggest? Who are the two biggest or three biggest guys that are going to impact that first round?
The two biggest, especially lately, that came out, obviously Kyler Murray. He could be a potential trade-up spot for somebody, which, the Raiders, they do have the 3 first-round picks, but when you need as much talent as they do, it's never a bad idea if the guy that if there's somebody that you just don't love at number 4, move down 6, 7, 8, pick up a few more assets. So if, Murray turns out to be what a lot of people thinks, he could be, I could definitely see somebody moving up to 4. Devin White from LSU declaring, everybody kind of knew he was going to, but until it was official, nobody really wanted to say anything. I just can't see Mayock and Gruden not loving this guy and wanting to throw him in the middle of our defense. He would be a perfect guy to target if they did move down.
Yeah.
He's got some issues because he's still learning the linebacker position because he came to LSU as a running back.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only been playing linebacker for 3 years.
Yeah.
So but you just see the talent. You just see from side to side that speed, and that's what the linebackers are going for. You don't see that big run stuffing middle linebacker much anymore because if you can't cover, you're just dead in the NFL at this point.
Yeah, and if we look at, so all the mock drafts have kind of changed in the last few days due to these early signings. We talked a lot about on our show on Sunday on CBS Sports Radio here in Las Vegas about Kyler Murray and should he play football, should he play basketball. I gave points to why and why he shouldn't. Number one is money. If you're going to go in the top 5 picks, that's $30 million. And so for him, he signed $4.66 million with the Oakland A's. He'd have to pay that back. But if you're going to make $30 million, not so much. If you go at the bottom of the first round, second round, you're more guaranteed around between $8 million, $9 million. And suddenly, it's like even money, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to go in the top 5 picks, he's got to come out. And so if he has an indication of that, and once they're allowed to start talking to these guys and say, hey, we might draft you at number 5 or 6, then he can say, okay, now I'm going to get that money. And long term, if you think, and I don't know that this is definitely true for him, but if you look at, we talked about this number, if you look at franchise quarterbacks in the NFL, Kelly, you're talking about lifetime earnings around $140 million. Whether or not he's a franchise quarterback, we can debate. But if you're going to get that kind of money, how could you pass it up? And I think that clearly the indication is that he's seriously considering football. What do you see from him? Do you see him having a franchise quarterback type career in the NFL?
I don't see him being an elite franchise starting quarterback. He could definitely be a guy that could be a starter in the league for a long time. The one thing everybody seems to miss about the baseball football thing is if he comes out in the draft, gets drafted, and in 3 or 4 years it's obvious he's just not a franchise quarterback, he can go back to baseball.
Yeah.
If he goes and plays baseball for 4 or 5 years and tries to come back and play quarterback, that's a bigger detriment to his football career. We saw Chris Winkie try it at Florida State. He was 29-year-old senior at Florida State.
Yeah.
So we've seen that in the past, and it didn't really work out. He's not going to be able to play 2 sports like Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson because at the quarterback position, you can't do that.
No.
You have to be 100% vested from day one in this league to be a starter.
Well, and 2 things there too. You bring up Deion and you bring up Bo. I think both, with all due respect to Kyler Murray, he's a great athlete. Is he the kind of athlete that Deion Sanders or Bo Jackson was? No. Now, Bo Jackson was a big bruising guy, different physical kind of player. Deion Sanders obviously was a freak of nature and the best that played the game. But I don't see him being that sort of athlete. Even if he was a defensive back, I don't see him being a 2-sport star. It's hard to do. There's a reason why it hasn't been done since, right? And the way the game has changed and how things have gone down. Now, we have folks on Periscope already bringing up names. So let's start to jump in now with where we're at with some of these names of folks who've declared and what's going on. So if we let's look at just the first 4 picks because of course the Raiders are number 4. But if we look at, did you hear that noise?
Yes.
Okay. If we look at the top of the draft, so you have the Cardinals at number 1, 49ers 2, Jets 3, Raiders 4. The Cardinals, They have a lot of needs, like the Raiders, okay? And, of course, Nick Bosa is the name mentioned to go number one overall by everyone. But you and I talked about this. There is a good chance that the Cardinals trade out of that number one pick, not very far down, in fact, might be to number two. What scenario do you see there, and why would it be to their advantage to do so?
If I'm them, I'm calling San Francisco because no team needs Bosa more than San Francisco. They've spent many picks on that defensive line. You know, if you put Bosa on that line, it kind of fills out the line that they have. And, you know, for Arizona to drop just to one, you know, from 1 to 2, if they can still get Quinnen Williams, who has a chance to be the best player out of this draft, or they can sit there and trade down again to somebody who wants to move up to get a Quinnen Williams. When you have so many holes as Arizona, you want to get premium talent always, but at a certain point, it's like we've got our franchise quarterback, we've got our best players, our running back. We have to help them out, you know. So offensive line, offensive weapons are something they need. You know, it's a paramount for them because your franchise quarterback you took in the first round, after 3 years, if you've given him no help, he's basically broken, and now you're looking for another franchise quarterback.
Right. And if you look at that, too, because the scenario you and I talked about, and I really think this is a distinct possibility, Arizona trades to 2, 49ers move up to 1, they grab Bosa because they need an edge rusher, right? And then the 49ers could still choose Quinnen Williams, which originally you had the Raiders selecting him in your mock draft from last week, but his stock has continued to rise, and he fits what they need. And so I see that happening. I don't see, if you're the Cardinals and you pick up a pick later in the draft because you need bodies, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean it would fit perfect for him. And if I'm Arizona, the 49ers came in this year thinking we've got our quarterback, we can make a playoff run. So they obviously think their team's a little better than they thought they were. If I'm Arizona, I'm like, okay, give me your number one next year. You think you're a playoff team? It's in the 20s. You know, so you just move down one pick, but you get another pick in the next round. When you need as many players as Arizona and as Oakland, you can put 2 drafts together. I don't have to get everybody I need in this draft because we're not winning next year. It's a 2 or 3 year process. So I would take a first rounder next year over, say, a 2 or a 3 or something in this draft because I'm not trying to fill every need right now.
Right. And then we look at the Jets at number 3, Jonah Williams. I think that is someone who everyone believes that for them it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
They have got to protect Sam Darnold, and for them to do that, again, and they have a lot of money. They're going to be active in free agency. They might go after Le'Veon Bell. Who knows if they get into the Brown sweepstakes, if he even gets traded. But to me, that is an interesting play there. And so I think the top 3 picks, anything can happen, right? Because people can trade. Arizona might trade down further. Who knows? But if I had to bet on it, I would bet on those 3, wouldn't you?
I would. The Jets could really throw kind of all this out of whack, though, if they do take a Josh Allen at 3, if they go defense. Because then Oakland's sitting there at 4, and Jonah Williams isn't somebody that, one, it's a pressing need for him. You know, they took Colton Miller, whatever. You know, you can say what you want about that pick, but, I mean, they're not going to be looking for left tackle. And I don't think Jonah Williams is a name that somebody's going to want to trade up for.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually worst-case scenario for Oakland in that position if those 3 defenders go 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so then if we get to then the Raiders, right? And I'm looking for my note cards because we try to prep. Anyway, so if you – yeah, they're here somewhere. I got so much equipment here. But if you look at this and if Quinnen Williams is gone, as we said, at number 2 to the 49ers or to the Cardinals, 49ers, Bosa, Quinnen Williams to Arizona. Then we look at the Raiders. That means Josh Allen is there. And this is a name a lot of Raider fans like. Obviously, the need for an edge rusher after you traded number 52, his name that should not be spoken again. To me, that makes a lot of sense with Josh Allen there. There are other players available, but it would be hard for. Wouldn't it be hard for them to pass up on Josh Allen? To me, he's got the package. I don't see any huge downsides with him.
I think if he's there at 4, they run as fast as they can up to that podium and grab him. Because you mentioned the name we won't mention. Allen's him light. He is not as big, not quite as strong, not quite as refined. But if I watch an inordinate amount of SEC football. If you see the jump he made from junior to senior year, I mean, it's astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just scratching the surface of what this kid can do. He's not going to, he's not going to come in and do what Mac has done. But, I mean, he's got the potential to be that guy that can be that replacement.
Yeah, no doubt. And if you look at some of the numbers here, for those of you who aren't real familiar with Josh Allen, let's just go over some of this. He led all FBS edge rush defenders with 400 defensive snaps. And he also a PFF pass grade of 93.8. You mentioned the size, 6'5", 230. Dropped into coverage. He can also play coverage. 152 times, high grade there as well. And if he was second in pass rush win percentage as well. So he finished the year 57 pressures, 28 hurries, 12 hits, 17 sacks, and this is what I like: 5 fumbles when rushing the passer. So he not only gets into that quarterback and causes pressure, but he also he has a nose for the ball, which is a big deal.
And this is all against SEC competition too. Say what you want about what they do in bowl games and everything. There's more talent in the SEC that gets drafted every year than any other conference.
Mm-hmm.
Every week he's going up against a right tackle, left tackle, whichever side you have him on, that has a chance to play on a Sunday.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Josh Allen there, if he's there, I can't imagine that they wouldn't take him. Now, there is a school of thought on another player, and a lot of scouts continue to love this guy, despite the fact that he didn't have the greatest year in his senior year, and you're already smiling because you know where I'm going with this one. But Ed Oliver out of Houston. Now, a lot of folks, I liked him a lot early in the year, coming off his 2017. I mean, he's got speed. He's fast interior. He's the kind of guy who can take over a game at times. Didn't do it a lot this year. Good feet. He can shed blocks really well. But at the same time, he's undersized. He lacks some weight. And against downhill run defense, he's not very good. So do teams overlook that? Is this a guy who, if a Mike Mayock or a John Gruden falls in love with, could end up going forward to the Raiders?
I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. I don't expect that to happen. I think Ed is going to fall, and he's going to be that one draft pick that 2 years from now everybody's like, how did he fall to 10 or how did he fall to 14? Because they do get enamored with the size stuff. You're going to see the same thing with Brian Burns, the edge out of Florida State. They just want to see that prototypical size from everything. That's what they Ed Oliver, though, he's got the kind of frame to where you could put on some weight on him without losing explosiveness.
Right.
But I think he's good enough now. If you set you've got him and Hurst on your line, that's you're up the middle, you're solid.
Yeah.
You can get some edge or whatever later. He's going to be one of those players. I don't think Ed Oliver's going to be a bust. I think he's going to be in the league for a while. He may not live up to, say, the number 4th pick, but he's going to be a guy that is going to be in the league for a long, long time. Yeah, no, and I think, too, one of the things that people get caught up in, our viewer, Corey, asked if there was any word on why Allen isn't participating in the Senior Bowl. It's not medical. And you know this because you follow the draft. I think for some players, the Senior Bowl helps them. What you don't want to do, Corey, is go into the Senior Bowl and have it hurt you. So if you're a guy who thinks you're going to be a top 5 pick, why would you? Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I saw that today as well, and I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised because he's a lock top 10 pick. I mean, unless something comes out in his background, which from everything you hear, he's a great kid. Everybody at Kentucky really liked him. He has nothing. He really has nothing to gain. Because the combine and his pro day is going to be he's going to blow up his combine and his pro day, and he knows that's more important than the Senior Bowl. Yeah, no, I agree with that. So, Corey, thanks for the question, man, and for the conversation there. But, with Oliver, that's the same thing, too. I think
his lack of strength overall. Now, you can fix that in the NFL, but the Raiders last year reached a little bit. I like P.J. Hall. He's a strong guy. And they have a guy like Arden Key, who's an edge guy, who really was undersized, was understrength. And you saw he couldn't finish on sacks with the quarterback. And so I think the last thing you need if you're the Raiders is a guy you need to come in and build. Where a guy like Josh Allen, you don't have to do much, in my view. I mean, he's got to work on some technique and whatnot. But from an overall strength perspective, Kelly, I just don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah, Allen's plug and play. You can throw him out there.
Plug and play.
He's
I like
going to
that.
pick up the scheme. He's going to know. You can throw him out there. Like any rookie coming, I mean, there are very few people that come in the league that are physically ready to compete on a day-in, day-out basis. So that's something you always have to work on. And that's why, there's a reason Ed Oliver was talked about as the number one pick coming into the year before the season started. It's like, you can't tell me that you're going to drop 10 or 12 spots. You know, he was dinged up this year, injury concern, maybe something for some teams. But you've seen enough on film to know this guy has a chance to be a franchise defensive tackle that's going to change the game.
Yeah. Now, let's go through let's get later in the first round for the Raiders. But if you look at today, Pro Football Focus, their mock draft, that's what I'm using as a guide today, just for a guide. We don't agree with all of it, of course, a lot of it. But I just want to go through it. What surprised me here was a guy that you had talked about in your mock draft for the Raiders. Lower on was DeAndre Baker, the cornerback from Georgia. They have him going number 5. I don't see with all due respect to my friends at Pro Football Focus, I don't see in any world where DeAndre Baker goes top 5.
Oh, I don't either. And I understand what PFF is doing because they're drafting off of their board. They have him as I believe they have him as their highest rated corner, which is why he's going that.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably I've got Byron Murphy maybe a little better long run. But, DeAndre Baker was probably the best college cornerback last year. I just think once he goes to the combine, he's not blowing you away as an athlete. And I think that's going to scare some people because it's all about speed and all about agility and everything in the NFL when you're a cornerback. The guy just knows how to play football, and he does it at a supreme level. But I don't think it's going to be enough to where he gets top 5, top 10 consideration.
Nice. And then you have 6, the Giants, who need a quarterback of the future. They have Murray going 6 to the Giants. And 7, the Jaguars taking Haskins. So the 2 big quarterbacks in this draft, because it's not a big quarterback draft, are Murray and Haskins at 6 and 7. Boy, I don't know. Kyler Murray in New York.
That's a pick if you're trying to win the press, you make that pick. If you're trying to win football games, I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be the most dynamic backfield in football. You put him with Saquon Barkley out there.
No doubt.
But that offensive line struggling so much, Kyler Murray will be taking a beating.
Yeah. He's not a big guy to begin with.
Yeah. To me, if the Giants are taking him, they're flat out telling you, Eli's our guy next year, and then we're moving on. You're not going to – I don't think the Giants are taking Kyler Murray and telling Eli, hey, we had a good run.
Right.
We'll see you later.
So Murray, too, and then Haskins, the differences between Haskins and Murray, if you're the Giants and the Jaguars, you need a quarterback. So both those teams, I think PFF has this pretty close here. But if you're the Giants, why might you take Haskins instead of Murray?
The size is going to be the main thing. That's going to be the biggest thing with – anybody looking at Murray. I mean, Haskins isn't very mobile. He's going to be a pocket quarterback. For the Giants, that's what they've had for the last however long. Eli's been there. They're set up, and they're used to having a quarterback who's not very mobile. So it would be a more natural transition to go to a Haskins instead of a Murray. You mentioned Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville has to be all in on Teddy Bridgewater because their window is now. And they can't go with a Haskins, a Daniel Jones, a Kyler Murray. They need to win now because their defensive players are coming up to where you're going to have to start paying some of these guys, and you're not going to be able to keep everybody. It's like your window is now. You have to make a move, and a rookie quarterback will not do that.
And you're telling me Bortles isn't the answer? That was just tossed in for fun.
I was shocked when they drafted him at 3. And I'm okay, hey, they see something that I don't. And apparently, there was nothing to see.
All right, so then if you go down the line, they have Greedy Williams going 8 to the Lions. and the Bills taking Jeffrey Simmons out of Mississippi State. And then one of the guys you really like, the Broncos, continuing to build on that defense, going for Byron Murphy out of Washington. What is it about Murphy that you think, because you think he's better than Baker?
Yeah, I think he will be long term.
Long term?
Yeah, like
Why?
If you put him on a field right now, I think Baker is a little better. But I think when you watch Byron, I mean, it's just he makes play after play. You can play. I think he would be best in a zone system. But if you need to put somebody on one-on-one, he's got the ability to where he's going to be able to lock somebody down. You know, he's not ideal size for what everybody wants in the quarterbacks. He is a little small, which I wouldn't say will scare some people off. But, like, say for a Cleveland who's got a Denzel Ward who's on the shorter side, you may not want to have the two short corners. But just watch the tape, watch Murphy play, and he's around. Anytime the ball's in his area, he's just there.
Yeah, and if you look at, too, we have some folks, we're trying to be as interactive here as possible, some folks who want Murray to go to the Raiders at 4. Never going to happen. Sorry. I don't. I know a lot of people still want to play into the idea that John Gruden's going to trade Derek Carr. I'm not saying he's not at some point, but Kyler Murray is not the guy you want to go with, and I don't think he fits that system at all.
Now, 10 years ago, I might see that. When it was, who's the big scary athlete? We'll take like
Val Davis era,
the Hayward Bay pick to where he was the fastest guy. That type of deal where you're looking for that supreme athlete. I'm not a big believer. I mean, this quarterback draft in general. If I need a quarterback, I'm not happy. It's like I'm not too excited. I'm looking at next year instead of this year.
And 2021.
Well, that's you got one. I mean, granted, he's gonna
go number one overall.
He'll be number one, and he'll be the best out of all of them that are in the next two drafts, in my opinion. But it's like next year you've got a couple options. This year, if you need a quarterback, you've got to either make a deal with the devil and say we can fix this guy, or you just pass it, kick the can down the road.
Right, and then real quickly too, just some interesting Deontay Thompson going to 12 at the Packers. Dexter Lawrence, a guy I really like, 13 to the Dolphins, makes all the sense in the world. They have the Falcons going after Ed Oliver at 14. I think that's more realistic.
If that happens, Atlanta will be doing backflips. And, I mean, I don't think he falls that far.
Okay.
But if he does, he's a perfect fit for that defense. Once Atlanta gets healthy, that defense will be a lot better. I mean, he will be a superstar if he falls to Atlanta.
Yeah, and hey, man, I know you were trolling about the Murray to the Raiders, so thanks for your comment there on Periscope. Also, trading for Nick Foles for the Raiders. We'll get to some of the Raiders specific and what could happen with trades and free agents in a second. Devin White to the Steelers at 20. A.J. Brown, guy I really like and you really like, wide receiver to the Titans. That would be a good fit for them, but I don't know that he falls that low either.
Actually, I think he does.
He does?
I'm not as big an A.J. Brown guy as some people. I think you have to play him in the slot. I don't think, even though he's got good size, I don't think you can put him on the outside. Because we saw when Metcalf went down at Ole Miss, he kind of struggled with press coverage. Kind of didn't really work in there. He was the number one wide receiver that everybody liked, and I think that's sticking with him. And a lot of people they're looking past some of the flaws and stuff because, well, this guy was supposed to be number one. I'm probably just missing something, and that's going to help. That's helping him kind of stay where he's at.
So, and then my guy for personal loyalty reasons, because I have a child at Arizona State, N'Keal Harry going to the Ravens at 22. I don't see that either.
I don't either. I think they're
not because I don't like the player. I actually like him more than you do.
Yeah.
But and that's just probably personal bias. But I don't see the Ravens with what they need going for a wide receiver. Or if they do, I don't think it's him.
Yeah, I don't either. I think if they're going for somebody, it's going to be somebody that can get a little more separation. Because I'm a Jackson fan. I have been since he was at Louisville. But he's not the kind of guy he's not the most accurate guy out there. Like, he can throw some throws that'll just blow your mind. But on a consistent basis, he's going to be missing. He needs guys that can get their own separation, that can get open on their own, so Lamar doesn't have to throw them open. And that separation's a little bit of an issue for Harry. You get a guy that size, though, big catch radius, that could be something that Baltimore looks for. Because it's like if you get the ball close to him, he's going to find a way to catch it.
Yeah, and then we do have, Kelly, a wild card here. Just a question off of Periscope. What about safety Marvell Tell? I think he's just looking for an opinion on the player, period. Not that he should go in the first round, but any comment on him?
Marvell Tell.
I'm not even familiar, man.
I'm drawing.
You stumped us on that one, so kudos to you. But so then we get down to the Raiders at 24. This was one that surprised me, and we talked about it. I actually think he would be a fine player, not at number 24, but they have Draymond Jones out of Ohio State, another defensive tackle going to the Raiders there as a pass rusher up front. He's got some upside, clearly, and he's a good player. But why is he not a guy that's fit for the Raiders?
For me personally, I'm not a big fan of his. You see him at Ohio State. He's making plays, but he disappears from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I watch him play, and I don't see a first round pick. If you get him late in the second round or something, give a chance of development. Because he needs use with his hands. Footwork's pretty good. He's obviously, strength won't be an issue because, he is a bigger guy. But, I don't see him as a first-round pick. I don't see what everybody – to me, it just doesn't show up.
Right. To me, he could – I would not take him in the first round either. I think he's a guy, actually, because of his size or lack thereof, could be moved outside. And I told you before we went on the air that that's fine, but what the Raiders don't need – and this is not a slight on Arden Key at all because I like him, but it's another Arden Key where you have to work on him, you have to bulk him up, you have to get him to learn a new position. And with the Raiders, with all of their needs, I think you need guys you can plug and play, as you mentioned, as quickly as possible. So to me, that rules him out, no?
Yeah, well, and the other thing, I'm not sure because I'm not even sure if he's played any end at Ohio State. I think he's been inside pretty much the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see the flexibility, and I don't see him you would have to see him. How does he bend an edge out? He's usually just a straight, up the middle pass rush, run defender. Once you start going to the outside, trying to bring these guys in, flexibility and all of that is a big key because you'll hear it at the combine with Montez Sweat. Doesn't really bend the edge that well. That's going to be why he may fall to the Raiders late in the draft. The talent's there, the size, the arm, everything's there, but he's not flexible. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem with trying to move Draymond out to the outside.
Yeah. And then to me, with Jones too, he struggles so much with the run. I'm not saying that every guy has to be stellar against the run, but again, with the needs the Raiders have, there's just better talent there available. In your original mock draft, you had DeAndre Baker falling that low to the Raiders, and I think the Raiders could go cornerback safety there, correct? With even if it's not Baker.
They possibly could. Safety, you've got a couple safeties that could fall. Deontay Thompson's I thought might fall because he had 4 or 5 plays in the playoff, and I know 4 or 5 plays don't make a season, but man, he hurt himself more than anybody did in the playoff. Just there were a few plays, and I'm not even counting the one where the wide receiver tore his Achilles, fell down. He took a bad angle, but the last thing he's expecting is his cornerback to fall down.
Yeah,
throw that play out. But there's just 4 or 5 other plays where it's almost like he was lost, and it's like this is the biggest stage you're on all year, and it's not a good time to have 2 worst games.
Right. And then you had in your original mock draft, and I know this is some change, you had them taking Montez Sweat out of Mississippi State. He's an edge rusher at 28. Now, if they take Allen at 4, if they're able to do that, that changes that pick, right? Or no?
It could. It kind of depends on what they have their visions for with Allen. Are you going to just have him? Are you going to have him be a defensive end? Are you going to have him be an outside linebacker? Which kind of depends on where they want to kind of set him at the most. I could see him taking both guys and because if you're going to have Allen be the outside linebacker and then Sweat on that same side, you're not going to be able to block both of those guys coming off an edge.
Yeah, and
you're making a choice at that point on the offense. Which one am I going to try to stop? Because you can't stop them both.
Right, and again, we talked about this too before, which is I believe you draft the player, you don't draft the position. So if you take 2 interior defensive linemen because their talent is so good, you can always worry about. And we talked about this will really surprise people, but we talked pre-show about maybe even a chance that you could perhaps change. You could switch PJ Hall. Small but strong, and he's quick. That first step.
I would be curious to see if you could put him on an edge. I mean, like, he's got a good first step. You know, I think it'd be an interesting, especially in, like I said, with the situation if they get a Quinnen Williams and you move Hall over, I'd be interested to see. Now, obviously, you know, they may have seen stuff in practice before. They may have tried that we don't know about.
Right.
To where it's just not going to be something that can happen. But I'd be interested to see it. But also with the Sweat and the Allen, you know, I'm not an Arden Key guy. You know that from this earlier draft. You could put Sweat on one side, Allen on the other. Just because, you know, you've got 2 edge guys. You have 2 sides of the field.
Yeah. Well, and in your mock draft from actually 2 weeks ago, you also, after Sweat at 28, the Raiders' next pick is at number 35, you had Devin Bush. A lot of buzz around Devin Bush. He might end up going towards the back end of the first round. Do you take him at 28 if he's there, and there's a threat of him being taken off the board before you get to 35?
I would have no problem with them taking Devin Bush 28. And I think he
they have a huge need for linebackers.
And that's the thing. They need linebackers almost more than they need edge. You know, and Mac Wilson from Alabama coming into the draft kind of helped that pick out a little bit because now you've got another linebacker who I think will go before Bush.
Yeah.
But, I mean, still you're looking at he's going to be probably the 3rd linebacker off the board. Is that going to fall to 35?
Yeah.
You know, is that going to – are you getting out of that? You know, so, I mean, you might – if you like Bush, you may have to take him in the first round. But depending on where your other picks fall, it's not like you're making a big reach for a player.
Yeah, and here's some comments from our guy Raiders to Vegas, who we follow a lot, and thanks for watching, man. He says they tried PJ outside. He had push, not speed.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the and that was the thing. I know they played him some out there, but you're also taking a guy who wasn't, like, that wasn't his spot. He was, like I said, I'm not sure how much they practiced him out there.
Yeah.
Because I know he did play with all the injuries and everything. They were playing everybody everywhere. I'm wondering if you take an off season and you say, this is what you're doing, if, you know, plus I also said, you know, if he would drop some drop a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you want your inside guy to be a little heavier than your, you know, if he drops 10 or 15, does he get a little quicker first step? Does he add a little bit of speed?
Well, also, Kelly, let's talk a little bit about depth in this draft. So we went through that first and second round pick, but let's talk a little bit about depth because I see a lot of Raider fans saying because they have needs everywhere, right? And I think you're right. I think linebacker, edge. I think you can always improve your defensive line. So interior guys, you can never have too many of them. You need edge. You need linebackers horribly. But you also need stuff on the offense. You do need long-term, I think, a running back you're going to develop. Maybe Chris Warren turns into that. I don't know. We didn't see enough of him to know. But I see a lot of Raider fans clamoring for a wide receiver. Tell people about the wide receivers in this draft.
This is a very deep wide receiver class for overall talent. The problem is when you go and you're looking for that prototypical number 1 wide receiver out on the edge, there's not anybody that sticks out. I like DK Metcalf. If his neck injury is not an issue, I think he should be the number 1 receiver off the board. He could be a freak athlete. All the other guys, there's some talented guys, but they're all number 2s. You know, they're all slot guys. Next year in the draft, you've got 4 or 5 guys that could be that, that number 1, that X wide receiver. So, everybody will tell you never look ahead to the draft. You never know what it's going to be. But when you have a team that has this many holes, you've got 3 picks next year, 2 next year, you kind of have to plan that. You kind of have to look. It's like, do we want to take a guy now at one position over another if we know next year's class is better?
Yeah.
And that's an organizational decision that they're just going to have to make.
Absolutely. We have another comment here. Where's the love for Gary?
I have none whatsoever. And as a Michigan football fan who's watched every second of him playing, he's the guy when he steps off the bus in that suit, you're like, that's a football player. When he goes to the combine and destroys the combine, everybody's gonna be like, that's a football player. Watch a Michigan game and show me where he dominated anything. It's you just you're waiting for these bulk plays to come up. And I think part of the problem is the way Michigan played him. To me, he's a defensive tackle. They were using him at edge a lot. If I'm an NFL team, I'm looking at him more as a DT than a D end.
Okay, so here a question from AJ DeMello. Who's the wide receiver most likely to be a Raider in the first round? I think we just talked about that. AJ, thanks for the comment, man, on Facebook. And then he asked Hawkinson or Faint at tight end.
It depends if you want to me, Fant is more of the kind of Ertz, Kelsey type guy to where you're not getting a lot of blocking, but he's going to be great running routes and can play. Hawkinson can do everything. He's not as special in the open field as Fant, but he's going to block for you. He's going to make catches. So it just depends on which kind of system you want to run. For Oakland, I think it would be Hawkinson because I think Gruden's going to see him pancake a dude every now and then, and then catch a 15-yard pass and just fall in love with the fact he could do both.
He could do that, yeah, and that obviously he would love that. Some now will go from Facebook to Periscope. Our guy Raiders to Vegas again. He likes Hakeem Butler or Marquise Brown at 36. 35 actually, but
there's a lot of buzz for Butler. He may not be there. He may not be there in the second round. If he can run about a 4.5, low 4.5 in the combine, I think you're going to see him shoot up. And was it Marquise Brown or AJ?
Yeah,
Marquise Brown.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a slot receiver, I think he would be good in a Raiders system because he's good after the catch.
Right.
His biggest problem is. And we mentioned it earlier, I think PFF had him with 3 catches that were defense. He comes from that wide open system to where he's always open.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how good he's going to be at getting open because we haven't had to see it because he played in the Big 12.
Right.
There's a couple guys I like better that you could get in the 3rd or 4th round instead of spending a 2nd round pick on a Brown. Like, to me, I would rather have Greg Dortch in the 3rd than Brown in the 2nd. Just a personal opinion, personal preference. I think Dortch is going to be a star in the league.
Yeah, and yes, we said 28 when it's 27. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, we all, because of the Cowboys and how they ended up, it went from 28 to 27.
And of course, we thought
Thanks,
we
guys.
had those first-round picks that the Dallas pick was going to be the worst of the 2 with the Bears. Yeah. We saw that coming.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Another question or another comment here from Corey, our guy Corey. Thoughts on the Mayock hire, Kelly?
I like the Mayock hire because you weren't going to get a legitimate GM candidate who wants to run a team because we all know that Gruden's going to be running this team. So the next best thing is to get a guy that Gruden will listen to about talent. Mm-hmm. And I think Mike Mayock's going to have his ear. Say what you want about Mayock. When you're trying to do the whole draft, it's a lot harder to do that and pick guys than it is when you're picking for one specific team. He's going to be able to narrow his focus, just be like, here's what we need, here's who I'm looking at, without having to go through, he's still going to look at the, 7th or 8th rated, the 7th or 8th rated, tight end, the 12th rated cornerback, but it's not going to be quite as in-depth as it is before, so he's going to be spending more time on, okay, here's my needs, here's where I know the draft's going to be good, I'm going to put all my time in this.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's to me. There's been so much talked about over the course of this year with John Gruden, how he's come in and I call it disruption because much like I wrote a piece right after the season about how the hire of Mayock was very Silicon Valley-like, meaning that disruption. When you talk about companies like Uber, right? They disrupted an industry. And I think what the Raiders are thinking differently, and to use a political term that I don't use very often, the kind of NFL deep state, the NFL, it's a very incestuous business with coaching and GMs, and we've seen that with this coaching search. Adam Gase. And you've seen all this happen. And so the Raiders thinking differently, it's easy to criticize. And you know what? It's fair criticism until they prove them otherwise. But I really like the hire. I think, too, the way they're thinking about building the roster is a completely different way. And you just can't pass judgment on it for 2 years. I think at least 2 years to see if there's improvement.
And even then, I mean, like they always say, you can't judge a draft class for 4 or 5 years. Yet when you're in the GM's office, that's out the window. Your draft classes are judged the year after year after year.
Right.
So it's possible that this, it may take 2 or 3 years. They may have, like Gruden's got a 10-year deal. He may tell Mayock, listen, we've got 3 years, do whatever we need to. You have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something like that, you can't judge it for 4 or 5 years, because the move they make this year, the players they do this year, they're not looking at next year. They're not looking at the year after that. They could be looking at 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, because it's a lot easier to plan a team when you know you have that security.
Yeah. Also, another question on USC. Where did it go? Oh, what do you think, Kelly, about Cam Smith, inside linebacker? Where do you think he'll go?
I think he's a day 3 guy. I don't know what it is about USC line. Like they were linebacker U for a while.
Yeah. And
it's just the last few years they've just kind of, and even when you had the guys like Cushing and stuff like that, they've kind of disappointed. Cam Smith's a guy. I mean, I wish I had his tackle numbers in front of him because they're extraordinary. Because I mean, he was a tackling machine. But it's just I don't see the speed. I don't see an NFL player when I see him.
Yeah.
I see a situational guy, but I don't see him as an every down, 3 down linebacker.
Yeah, he's a depth guy.
Yeah.
Right. No doubt. I agree.
Which, like I said, as the day 3 kind of depth's what you're looking
Right.
for in those. You obviously it's great if you get a guy who's a starter, but I mean, once you start getting into rounds 4 and on, you're looking for the occasional starter, but depth guys, and the Raiders need depth.
Yeah, and definitely. And I think day 3 guys, though, the chances of them making the team, now there's great examples of guys who do, but a lot of them don't as well. So you take kind of a flyer and see how they do in your system. From Real Super Sean, right? Super Sean, my eyes are going bad. When will the Raiders solidify the middle linebacker position? We talked about the need for linebackers. I think the Raiders, to get to where they need to be at linebacker, Kelly, you could tell me if you agree, it's a multi-year build. They're going to have – now, there's not a big free agent class this year.
That was going to be the point. To say with free agency the way that is this year, you're definitely looking at a 2-year thing to solidify the linebackers. I thought Kabinda had he was starting to come around and made some good plays, but I mean, he's not your future. Mm-hmm. He's a good depth guy. He's going to be able to kind of make plays for you, which is why if Oakland decides to move out of 4, White out of LSU, I think, is the perfect. Just you want a guy like that in the middle of your defense, and I think he would fit perfect in the Raiders scheme. Yeah,
and that Devin White top 5 he's asking. We have one viewer.
Do I think he'll go there or what?
Yeah, is he a top 5 talent?
Oh, he's a top 5 talent, but his positional value will knock him out of there. He's probably the 3rd or 4th best player in this draft, in my opinion. Just if you're talking about just straight athletic ability football player, he's a top 5 guy for me. You're just not going to see somebody in the NFL now take the middle linebacker in that range. If he goes 4 or 5, whoever gets him is going to have a guy that can sit there for the next 10 years. He'll go to a couple. I think he goes to a couple Pro Bowls. So it'll be one of those things where it won't be an overdraft. But if he gets drafted, that's all you're going to hear is about how he was overdrafted.
Yeah, and we had a request for our picks for the Super Bowl, which we'll get to right towards the end of the show. Here's a good question as we start to think about the Raiders long term in the AFC West, and that is, what do the Raiders have to do to overcome Kansas City? And I think, look, what Patrick Mahomes has done this year, what their offense has been able to do, even after Akeem Hunt was sent to the street due to his incident, it's going to take time. I mean, you don't build a roster like that. Now, the Chiefs' defensive roster, if the Chiefs get better on defense, they're going to be the class of the AFC West until the Raiders can get that good. I see the next 3 years. I don't see anybody rivaling them. Do you?
No.
As much as it's painful for Raider fans to hear that.
If I'm a Raiders fan over the next couple of years, I'm looking wild card. That's my no. That's seriously, that's my goal. Because when you look at the talent, I mean, Mahomes isn't like next year. Mahomes isn't going to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns.
Right.
You know, but is he going to throw for 4,840? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're getting their guard back who got hurt this year. The offensive line will be better. They've got to find an answer at running back, which they're not bad at with all the Williamses they have back there. But I mean, they need somebody back there. But they're going to spend all their time and resources on the defense now. The offense is set for a while.
Yeah, and we have another viewer on Periscope saying we got to get out of KC by building an offense like theirs. Now, I think to me it's much more about balance. I think, and remember KC too. You got Mahomes on a rookie deal. You have Travis Kelce, who's had another career year. He's a great tight end, the best in the game right now. I think because Gronkowski's on the way down, even though he's still good, and you got to respect him. I just think that you're going to have to find some more balance, and I think it'll catch up with the Chiefs. But I think they have a 3-year window, to where they're going to be pretty much untouchable.
Yeah, and you're right on there. Also, Hill's going to have to get paid before too long.
Yes.
So I mean, it's great to have the quarterback on the rookie deal because he's the most important part. He's now very inexpensive. You can spend money elsewhere, but that's going to change in 3 years.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, you have that 3-year window. Now you've got to pay Mahomes, who's going to be top 3 or 4 paid. I mean, he's going to be up there. So now it's like, okay, this money's now gone. How do we build around there?
Yeah.
So I mean, that 3-year window's being that's an easy choice. But yeah, like I said, if I'm the Raiders for the next 4 or 5 years, I'm looking wild card. I'm not looking division. Yeah.
No, that's definitely. I agree with you on that one. Now, if we talk about let's talk a little bit general football here. Playoffs. We have the AFC, NFC championships this weekend, Kelly. And, of course, you have the Patriots going into Kansas City. Tough place to play, even if you're Tom Brady. Doesn't matter who it is. It looks like, from my friends in Kansas City, I lived there for 4 years, it might be minus 15 wind chill.
I saw the winter storm warning and everything. Cold weather and snow doesn't really affect the football as much as a lot of people think, and this is coming from a gambling perspective.
Yeah.
It's the wind. That's the most important thing. If there's a minus 15 wind chill and the wind's kicking up, that completely changes that game. If it's just cold, bitter cold, those guys can handle the cold. It'll be a little sloppier because, obviously the better conditions, the better you're going to play football.
Yeah.
But, as long as the wind's not kicking up, and if the wind starts kicking up, you've got 2 quarterbacks. Who do you think's going to be able to throw the ball through that wind better?
Yeah.
It's going to be Mahomes.
Yeah.
If the wind's kicking up, Brady's going to have to stick. They don't throw a lot of long balls, but, you can basically take that completely out of their offense.
Yeah, and I think that as much as Raider fans, with reason, I think actually everybody outside of New England hates the Patriots. You have to respect, and this is the one thing I've always gotten, and we've had Michael Lombardi on our CBS show a bunch, who worked for Bill Belichick. As much as you don't like them and you think they're going to come down, you still have to respect. And what he did, for example, last week against the Chargers from a coaching perspective was such an undressing of Anthony Lynn that it goes beyond just playing. It goes to preparation. Now, he had 2 weeks, but it goes to preparation and it goes to game plan. And no matter what you think of Bill Belichick and his boring press conferences and the whole thing, that was an unbelievable performance from a coaching perspective, I believe.
Oh, yeah. That was – and the funny thing was everybody, say gambling-wise and everything-wise, everybody was all over the Chargers.
Yeah. Including me.
That game was over in 7 minutes. Because after the first 7 minutes of that game, you're like, this thing is done. Like you said, just it's a whole different class of coach when you start going up against Belichick in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, being on the road, they are not the best when it comes to their, being on the road. It's not like they're at Foxborough. And Andy Reid's been around enough to where you're not going to be able to do to him what you just did to San Diego.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of good questions, so I'm trying to get them, and some of them are jumping around, but we're willing to jump around with you. We have one running back in the first round, a viable option for the Raiders, or don't bother. We agree on that one.
I say don't bother.
Yeah.
This running back class is good for depth guys, but not for a number one starting running back. you've got a couple guys next year coming out that are going to be a lot better. Like I said, they've got the 2 picks next year. So if they want to go after it, an ATN out of Clemson or a Dillon, out of Boston College, I think they're a lot better options than the guys you have.
Yeah, and that to me is key. And I think, it'll solidify. We'll start to see, again, the Combine's March 3rd, and we'll see what happens. Do you see any there's a lot of talk, and I'll address this because I saw some questions come in earlier about it. Raiders will have cap space. So people see cap space and they think, oh, let's go get a big guy. Let's go get Le'Veon Bell. Do the Raiders make a run at him? I think they may make some. There's never anything bad about having a conversation, but I don't see Le'Veon Bell going to the Raiders. Now, they might surprise us, but why wouldn't he become a Raider?
Well, for Le'Veon Bell, it's do I want the most money or do I want to win? Because if he wants the most money, he could go to Oakland or he could go to the Jets. If he wants money and win, there's some other teams that, have a better chance at winning
The
and
Colts?
have money. Well, the Colts, Ballard came out and did a press conference the other day talking about, in general, like, there's some names out there people want us to go after. He basically flat out came out and said they would never go after a guy like Bell or Antonio Brown. He just never didn't mention him by name, but just, he can tell he wants the guys that are all in, the players' guys. So they weren't out there. I thought Bell would be a perfect fit in Indianapolis. But that's off the table. So now I think the Jets just back up a Brinks truck for him.
And we have our guy Raiders to Vegas making an Andy Reid, is playing for a fast food buffet at the White House. Hey, that whole thing with the White House, and this is not a comment on Trump or anybody, but I think people are making such a big deal out of it. They're kids. They liked it. I don't think there was any problem with it.
And here's the funny thing about it. Like they have I don't know if he's a trainer, but I'm not exactly sure what his total is. But he makes sure that those guys aren't eating any of that crap during the regular season, everything like that. If you're a college kid and you've had to eat a specific diet and everything for a year, you see something like that, man, your eyes are just blowing up. It's
what I thought was funny was that the toxicity around the president right now is Trump joked that you could stack these burgers a mile high, and the Washington Post did a fact check on it, which I thought was like, okay, that's a waste of time, effort, and money, I'm sure. But Kelly, in closing, let's do quick predictions on the AFC NFC Championship game. As much as I would like to see, and I know this pains, it's like to sit there and say who do you want to win, the Chiefs or the Patriots, to a Raiders fan is like saying, do you want to be shot in the head or do you want your head cut off, right? But I would love to see the Chiefs win, to just disrupt, to do something different, and have somebody different there. To me, it's a toss-up. I think Mahomes, to your point, I think he's doing so well on what they're going to be able to do there, but I just can never rule out the Patriots. So I go into this game, now from a gambling perspective, different story, but from a straight-up perspective, I don't know. My heart would say Chiefs. My wallet would say Patriots. No?
Well, I said at the beginning of the season it was going to be the Rams and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It was Brady's last run. So obviously a few days ago, a friend of mine texts me who I pick. I tell him the Saints and the Chiefs. Nothing's going to surprise me in these two. I've kind of settled on the Chiefs and the Rams. I just think that the Kansas City offense is going to have just enough to beat the Patriots. At least that's my hope, because I hate the Patriots, obviously. And I think,
like everybody.
Yeah, the Rams defense has played a lot better the last few weeks, so you're starting to see it's going to be really tough to go down into New Orleans and beat Drew Brees.
Yeah.
I think the losing Sheldon Rankins is huge for the Saints. Todd Gurley's going to have a lot more room to run than he had before. I think that's a huge injury. Because you're looking at a game, whoever has the ball last. I hate when people say that. Whoever has the ball last is going to win the game. But it's true a lot.
It is true.
And in that game, I think
especially
it's
in
true.
the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think I've picked the Rams since early on. I love Drew Brees. I think he is. I won't say underrated, because clearly he's not. But I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Now, if he had won 2 or 3 more Super Bowls, we would be having a different conversation, unfortunately. But I think as good as he is, I think the Rams have the edge. I could very easily, though, because it's in New Orleans, It's a great environment. They have a nice home field advantage there, and that means a lot in the playoffs. Again, I'm going to pick the Rams, although I think the Rams, even with Sue gone next year, I think the Rams are going to be better next year. So if they don't win it this year, I think it's going to be a close game. But I'm going to stick with the Rams by between 1 and 3 points. So a field goal or some odd play is going to get them a victory. So yeah, so I like the Rams and the Chiefs. So I think we're almost on the same page.
Yeah, that's kind of like I said, that's kind of where I've fallen, but.
Yep.
Nothing will surprise me on Sunday.
Well, Kelly, man, we're going to wrap it up now. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, we'll be coming live from the Cigar Box in Las Vegas. It's right off Dean Martin, right off the Las Vegas Strip. If you're in Las Vegas already, or if you come to visit, make sure you come by and see the entire team here. They're amazing. We started our podcast here, and which led to our radio show. So this is where our beginnings were. And as you can tell, Kelly and I both love sitting down and smoking a stogie. So, Kelly, we'll have you on the radio show real soon, and I'm sure we'll see something from you on the website, too.
Yeah, anytime you need me, you know where to find me.
All right. Okay, guys, well, that's going to wrap it up for us here, both on video and on the audio portion of the live podcast. You can also catch the podcast via iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast, YouTube even. You can listen to it there. Make sure you subscribe. If you subscribe, you won't miss either a podcast and you won't miss our radio show, which, again, Sundays, 8 to 10 a.m., CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. You can also, we have a lot of fans, a lot of listeners outside of Las Vegas. You can get it on the radio.com app on all platforms. You just punch in CBS Sports Radio 1140, and you can listen to it live. That app is great, too. You can listen to sports stations all over the country, too. Make sure you do that. We'll also have more videos coming up. We simulcast the radio show here, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, just like you're doing tonight. So you can catch us there as well. So make sure you do that this week. We'll have previews of the AFC, NFC championship game and some Raider news as well. So make sure you do that. For Kelly Kriner, I'm Scott Branson. I want to thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time.